So if you have questions, I'm not ignoring you, especially if you're on this side, because I've lost all the hearing in this side. Laura is supposed to flag me down if y'all have questions and I don't hear them. But we are glad that you could join us today. So we're going to cover the new juvenile law, and we have the attorneys better still be in here. Entering of the mental adjudications, removing mental adjudications from the system, and some miscellaneous issues that I'll bring up or you all can bring up. So in Tennessee, when we opened TICS in 1998, in answer to the Brady Bill check, the new federal law, we took on the federal prohibition. So of course, the convicted felons, the mental adjudications, domestic violence convictions are all federally disqualifying. So we disqualify individuals for those. But in Tennessee, you are prohibited if you're a Tennessee resident and you've been convicted of stalking in the state of Tennessee. Misdemeanor or felony, either one is going to be disqualified, as long as you're a Tennessee resident. We also have an addiction to alcohol. So that's one reason I want to see all these arrests and stuff on the criminal history, so I can count and add. So what's addicted to alcohol is an individual who within the last year has had an alcohol-related conviction, whether it's a public intoxication or a DUI, and then 3 alcohol-related charges within the last 5. Doesn't matter if they were convicted or not on the 3 other arrests. Of course, the 18,922 little g, that is the mental defective entries on individuals who get adjudicated as mental defective. How many of you all make those entries that's here today? Raise your hand. So Hamilton, yes. Hamilton has a lot of ones. Yes. So, and these count for juvenile or adult. Any of them that's adjudicated can be entered into the next indices, and those get entered through AOC information and stuff, and those go into the next indices. So anybody who's purchasing a firearm, we will see it, or Kevin at Department of Safety issuing a permit will see that they're not eligible to have a firearm. And the new juvenile law. Right now, if you have a juvenile that is convicted of any of these following charges, the aggravated assault, the mass threats of violence, at this point in time, if you have these convictions, you can send convictions, you will email them to me. And my email address is sandy.duncan, UNCAN at TBI.10.gov. Because these individuals are now prohibited. They reach the age of 25. We are working on getting it set up to where you can enter those into the flex check system instead of having to email me the paperwork. And hopefully it will be very painless. You'll have drop down boxes and it will be easy for you to make those entries into the system. That way, Kevin and TICS will see it if they go and try to purchase before they're 25. And if they go outside the state of Tennessee, like to Georgia, because we have lots of people that would like to cross the state line, especially if they know they're in trouble or have been in trouble. Is have any questions about the new juvenile? Rachel's coming up.
Quick point of clarification. So when Sandy is talking about juvenile courts who are, and you can see it's got it underlined and highlighted, adjudication of delinquency of juvenile court. So if you are working in a criminal court or a general sessions, and this is occurring, like if they've been transferred to adult court, we don't need those judgment sheets. This is talking, because they're going to be, well, in theory, because you've already fingerprinted them, like we talked about, and we're getting those on the criminal history. So this new juvenile prohibitor law is dealing specifically with creating a new class of prohibited persons, which are those that are actually remain in juvenile court and are adjudicated delinquent. So this is dealing with juvenile.
So when you all are entering the mental adjudications, the ones that have those, I guess I probably could go over to this side of the room and talk mostly. You're going to make sure that they have been adjudicated as mental defective in a court of law. And you are going to maintain that paperwork for as long as those entries are in there. And right now, the only way, of course, you have the 3 business days to report the stuff through the next indices on the adjudications. You need to keep all the paperwork because the FBI comes out every 3 years and picks certain agencies across the state of Tennessee to audit. So when they get there, they're going to see that adjudication. They're going to match up the adjudication. So say you had entered a John Smith with a date of birth of 1/18/1939. But on the judgment, it says John Edward Smith, 1/18/1939, and had his social security. All that information should have been entered into that entry because they are over 1 million John Smiths with the same date of birth. So if any of those John Smiths goes to purchase a firearm with that date of birth, good possibility that they're going to get denied because there's not enough information in that entry to determine if it's the John Smith that's here in Tennessee that's trying to purchase, or John Smith in Kentucky, and FBI NICS has to reach out to you all to get more information on that entry. So this gives the information that needs to be reported by our state law. And that's going to be the complete name, the docket number, the date of birth, race and sex, and social security number if available. Some will be available. Sometimes you're not going to have that social security number. In removing the mental adjudication, every year we have to report to the U.S. senators and stuff committees. So if an agency has made an entry, and let's say it was a typo, and the only way, if you can't modify that entry, and then you have to remove it and re-enter it, we have to tell them the reason that every entry is removed every year. Sometimes there is problems with being able to modify the entries. Sometimes the entries were made and they shouldn't have been made. So like if your law enforcement agency starts giving you transport lists where they have taken somebody for the 72-hour observation, unless they actually get adjudicated, those do not get entered into these files. So once a year, if you all start making the entries and you have to remove one, we'll be reaching out to see why the entry was removed. So once an individual is entered as a mental defective into the next entry, indices, The only way they can be removed is through a relief from disability. That they would have to petition and get the judge to sign off on that. We have not had very many across the state. Since this went into effect, I will say less than 10. So a lot of the judges are not issuing the release from disabilities. And we have a law that is entered by the VA hospital, so that's entered through federal. So a state judge cannot do a relief from disabilities on a federal entry. We've had a couple that we had to send back and they didn't realize it. After we receive this at TBI, I go in at that time and remove the entry. There's a certain way that you have to remove the entry that notifies FBI whether it's a relief from disability or just a regular cancellation. So on the relief from disabilities, we don't have to report those to the federal committee. It's just the ones that we cancel out or clear out with no reason. And usually the day that I get these, I go at that time and remove them. So then if the individual goes the very next day, that entry is going to be gone because it's removed in real time. There's no waiting period. So right now we're waiting on Laura Thomas is my newest trainer in TICS. So she'll be going across the state, helping train. Once we get, and I don't, Bruce, do we have an estimate of when we're going to get to work on? So I have no date of when I get to work on my newest business unit, and that's going to be on the entries where you can enter them in real time, and they'll be a lot easier. So once we get that up and going, we will travel across the state of Tennessee so that you all don't have to come 300 miles to the to get training and stuff, but we will send out emails and stuff. We're setting out at a table, so if you want to give us your contact information, once that comes up, start emailing y'all and letting you know. And this will be for your juvenile courts. Would need this for those entries. On the audit information, so we will be auditing the juvenile entries, the mental defective entries through the courts. And we also audit law enforcement that makes those entries or makes inquiries into the system, doing the background checks. We will be audited the whole state, so it'll be one time every 3 years, unless there was an issue that arose out of the first audit. We'll come back and see if it's got worked out, fixed, but I have faith in all of you, it'll be fine. But we will be contacting you and scheduling a time when the appropriate personnel will be in your office and your least busiest time so that we don't cause any problems while we're there. Anybody have any questions on that? I was about to say, I don't think it's gonna move all the way, Lori. So here's our contact information, and Holly will, I guess, send this out when she emails the slides out. The TBI TICS is our unit email, and that is watched 7 days a week from 8 a.m. till 10 p.m. And we're open 362 days out of the year. So if you have any questions, you can contact us. For a lot of you all, some of you all, Cordell Malone, he's a CJIS supervisor up at our unit. And I know he requests a lot of information from you all. So, Mr. Kevin. Do you have a PowerPoint? Sorry. Did you have a PowerPoint?
So there's this, or there's the.
This is Kevin from the Department of Safety.
Thanks, Holly. Yeah, my name is Kevin Brisbane, Department of Safety, Handgun Permit Office. I supervise all of the background checks for state. And all my people back here that hand out bags to you. Going to talk just a little bit about the permit and pretty much what you're likely to see from us, how I can help you, how you can help us. I realize I am the last man standing before lunch, so I'll try to make this quick and practical for you at the same time. There are over 724,000 valid carry permits in the state. Doesn't mean everybody carries, but they've passed all the checks and all that. We maintain that daily. Did over 109,000 background checks last year. Issued 41,000 permits. That's new permits, that's renewals, that's duplicates, all of that. So there's some automation in there, which we're very thankful for, but there's a lot of manual work in that. And I'm sure you folks on occasion get phone calls from us. And I've probably emailed or spoken with several of you. 90% of what you're likely to see is what we call a disposition letter. There's not a final disposition on the criminal history record. We issue the letter to the customer to go obtain that. That is not our responsibility per the statute to do, although we get involved at times. And so they may show up to your office with a letter that looks something like that. I mocked that up. Yes, that's me. And so it's requesting a final disposition, and it needs to be certified. They need to come away with that. If there's not a final disposition, we understand that too. It may not have been to court yet, but we're asking to give them what you have. If there's a charge on the record that that you don't have any record of, say Knox County Sheriff arrests somebody on an assault charge and the court has no record of that. We're looking for what we call a no record letter. Just on your letterhead, we don't have record of that charge, a date for this person, and we will accept that. That's probably the most of what you're gonna get from handguns. If there's question about that, and there's a person standing in front of you, call us. We're happy to help. And at the end of the presentation, there will be contact information, and those are probably the two most important slides, really. The second thing that you're likely to see is an appeal. If we deny a permit, if we revoke or suspend a permit, they have the right to have that reviewed by a judge to see if Department of Safety erred in its decision. So here's a copy of the form. File that with your office, and we wait on that hearing date. One of the bugaboos of that process is I'm not always notified. Not your responsibility to do that, but we're looking for as much notification as possible. I will probably be calling the day after the hearing to find out what the judge's decision was, because we need to take action right away generally. Back of the form has for the judge's decision and their reasoning for that. So if there's any questions about that, feel free. The last thing to really talk about is applications. Any of your offices accept applications? No, here. There are a few in the state that will accept applications for renewals and duplicates, primarily because there's not a driver service center, particularly local. So in that instance, we're asking that you make sure that the application gets sent to us. You take the money, the application's there. If we don't get it, that's just a hiccup in the process. But very much our process is very similar to Sandy's, like she described earlier, same disqualifiers and such. And we communicate on a regular basis about charges and questions. Here's our office contact information. That's just the general office number, fax number, and that's our email inbox. If somebody's asked you to send a disposition over, there's that information. I will send this out along with the other presentations. The last slide here is me. That's me. That's my phone, and that's my email. If you have questions about background issues, eligibility, etc., please call me. I'll be happy to help. Holly has pulled some of you folks in fairly regularly. She's laughing over there.
If it's safety, I just transfer it to Kevin, even if it's,
So, and don't believe anything she tells you about me. Anyway, I figure these last two slides are probably the most critical of this. Like I said, we're happy to help. We may call you for some information as well. We'll talk about this bag here real quick. Make sure everybody got one. Number one, if you didn't, Jessica, what you have in here is you have eye protection, ear protection, a pistol chamber flag, a rifle chamber flag, and a gun light. And these are bags that we hand out for various events, and some of them are training events. So the other two things in there are business cards. One is for our director or our assistant director. Don't ask them anything unless it's a casualty. The other one is for my boss, and my information is on the back. Yeah, just at a real practical level, or one of us. And so I want to make sure you had that as well. Anyway, that's all we have. If there's questions, I'll be hanging around through lunch. And thanks so much for being here.
I have two things before we break for lunch. One thing is this conference was supposed to be tomorrow, but someone's birthday. Made us take this. And another thing, Rachel would like to talk about restoration of rights real quick. And then we'll go to lunch.
But I'm not going to actually talk about this because I have like 2 minutes. So don't worry, I'm not adding in a whole other section. The only thing that I wanted to touch on was just if you receive a restoration of rights order, will you please make sure that you are sending those to us as soon as they are signed? A lot of times, we most frequently do not get copies of those. Most of the time, we are actually notified of those whenever an individual goes to purchase a firearm, and then they will send in the restoration of rights orders. But if you guys will go ahead and send those to the disposition unit whenever they're signed, that way we can go ahead and actually proactively add those to the criminal history so that whether it's us or another state or another agency knows that they've had their rights restored, that would actually be really helpful. So that's it. That's all I got. Thank you.